This is a reminder video on how I utilize double-pointed needles for casting on. I'm working on a new sock pattern, which I can do a knit along with, or not a knit along, but a knit with me, kind of relaxing video once I get a little bit further into the pattern. But I can't share the pattern. It's something that's from a book that needs to be purchased, but I can just do little snippets of a quick knit with me just for some relaxing knit time. But I will do probably maybe a Hermione everyday sock, which is a popular free pattern, and I can also find some other free pattern socks. I know someone had asked for more sock videos, so I will try to do that as quickly as I can. I'm working currently on a blanket and socks, but the blanket has to come first, so I've only done a quick cast on, and I thought, just to remind myself how to best cast on in my own personal opinion, my own little way, I wanted to remind myself how to do this. So I've cast it on with my Norwegian cast on method. Not even mine, but the Norwegian cast on method. 64 stitches. And I have a full set of 5 double pointed needles. So I know a lot of folks, when they use double pointed needles, they'll cast on and then end up leaving that one needle that they've already put stitches on, let it hang, and then sometimes just go to the next one and start to let them connect. Honestly, that drives me up a wall. So what I like to do is go backwards and then join in the round. So I've got my 64 stitches. Normally I would start knitting off of this end because here's the working yarn right here. But I need to get these stitches onto 3 other needles, 16 onto each needle. So what I will do is take one needle and just pop off 16 stitches from the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, there's 16, and it's joined, and I'm using the table to stabilize. Take the next needle and pop off another from the main needle that had all the stitches on it. I'm going to pop off 16 more stitches. You can either have the needle in the back or the front before you start. Doesn't make a difference. $16 there. Now, as you can tell, this underside, you can call it a spine, bottom of the stitches, whatever works best for you. You can see how it lines right on up. And what you could do, if you don't want these just fiddling around and moving around on you, what you could do is take a needle holder, and let me grab one just to show you. The one that I use is this, which I've shown in other little reminder videos. You just squish it and then your needles will lock right into those holes. So what you can do, if you'd like, you can see how everything lines up. You can even pull your needle straight out parallel and you can see how all the spines, so to speak, line straight up. So to keep these two kind of in position and out of your way, you can put them together, take your little needle holder, squish it together, and put both needles right through the hole, and they're locked in. Then you can continue with the next. So for that, I think I'm going to put that in the back so I can get to the stitches a little bit easier. Come on. Whoops, I did 17. I only need 16. There we go. Let me triple check myself. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's 16, which means there's 16 on this first needle. Triple checking. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay. So everything, as you can see, lines up. Even if I were to twist this all around, all I have to do is just line everything right back up. You can see where that bottom edge lines up. So I'm going to take my needle holder off, move my working yarn and my tail out of the way. Needle 1, needle 2. You can see how that one's twisted. I'm just going to turn it. You can see how this is all turned. I just want to make sure that it lines up. It doesn't go that way. It has to go that way. And you can just pull it. You can just pull it so that you can see that it lines up. Let me zoom in so I can show you a little bit better. So you can see how this spine lines right up. You can see how that one's trying to turn. That's okay, just turn it right back. You can even straighten it out. You see how it looks nice and even. So I'm just going to make that one go vertical. And you can see how this one's doing a little strange dance. I'm just going to pull that spine down, those bottom parts of the stitches. And you can see how it has to line up with that last needle. And then I can turn it. And it makes right in here that 90-degree turn, just like these others. So I'm going to spread my stitches out a little bit. make it a little bit easier to see, and I probably should not have cast it on so tightly, but it is what it is. I'm going to pull needle, this would be considered needle 4, back, because what I want to do is join this stitch to this side. And as I mentioned in a previous reminder video, that was on how to do it's a loop method, and for some reason the name of it is escaping my mind. But you're creating a round circle in the center and then building out, usually when you're doing a shawl or blanket. But it was in the very last video that I created as a reminder. So we're going to do what I mentioned in that video, which is take this last stitch here and this first stitch here and crisscross. So let me pull this needle a little bit further back, get those stitches to move up. I don't need that one so far. There we go. Just moving the square around. Zoom out a little bit. So all I did was turn everything. Working yarn is here. This is just the tail. It's just going to be in the way for a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to crisscross. I want this stitch over here and this stitch over here. That way they join in the round. So to do that, I'm taking the last stitch onto the right needle and keeping my working yarn in the back and just slip it on, and then I'm pulling the first stitch, and I can pull as much as I want because it's pulling from the tail. So I've got slack, and I'm just going up and over that last stitch and just kind of push everything together. You can see how it crisscrosses, and then just pull on the tail. You can see how it pulls everything and tightens because it's pulling on that loose stitch now, which was here but is now here. Crisscross. And then just push things back away from the tip. That way you don't lose any stitches. And I'm just moving things around just to get them lined up and nice and even. I'll show you what it looks like laying flat. Get this tail out of the way. And you've cast it on 4 needles, a nice square to work. Technically it's still working in the round even though it's a square shape. Taking the extra needle, getting the working yarn ready. And normally I would put a stitch marker right here, but this is just a reminder video. So what I want to do, keeping this needle in the back, go ahead and start knitting. It's going to be kind of tight, that's okay. And it may get a little fiddly because the stitches, not the stitches, sorry, the needles just want to move, which is fine. You just pull and they just go right back into a square. I can pull the tail and make that a little bit tighter. So I'm just going to knit, nothing special. This is just a reminder video. And you can see how all the needles are just squishing together. That's fine. I always thought working with double pointed needles, especially when they say use double pointed needles for socks, I'm like, that doesn't work well. You need to have a 9-inch circular. But you can actually do it with just 4, well, technically 5 double pointed needles. But once you get enough material built up, you won't have the needles moving around. The weight will hold them in position so they won't putz around on you and get all wobbly. Let me pull this one back a little. I think I'm going to zoom out so you can see a little bit more clearly. And put that needle in the back so I can get to these front stitches a little bit easier. And I'll just do one whole round here. Make this kind of short and sweet. But I think this is the easiest way, at least for me, that is the easiest way to cast on multiple needles, 4 needles. You can do it even with 3, is to just simply knit the entire amount of stitches that you need and then slip going backwards onto your needles, each needle getting the designated amount of stitches that you need. Either it's all divisible by 2 or 4, or you do whatever the pattern calls for. And you can see how it's all kind of wonky. You know you work this one, you just work this one, which means you have to work that one in. When you pull it, it starts to go back into the square. Makes it nice and easy to see. Get this tail out of the way. And again, you can see how everything starts moving around. That's okay. You don't have to hold on to anything. Just let them move around. They'll shift back into position if you lay them down, like I showed you. Oops. See? Just straighten them out, even your stitches out, and there's your square. Move to this needle. Can't go anywhere else but to this needle. And it does look like these stitches, the cast on is getting stretched out. It tightens up automatically on its own as you go. You can just make sure that you have tighter tension if you need to. Or not terribly tight like I did, and it's hard to get into these stitches, at least for the first round. By the time you go around the second round, it's a little bit easier. Apologies. Needle smacked camera. Okay, I'm back to the first original needle, and yes, it's standing straight up. That's fine. Just push it back down. It's the tail working yarn. Stretch everything out, and you can see 4 perfectly casted on needles, and then you just keep knitting away. But that's my best way for casting on for double pointed needles. Hope this helps.